meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 37 of the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders. Members are attending in person and in the room and remotely on Zoom application. We are resuming debate on the motion moved by Mr. Barrett on Monday, April 13th, 2026, that the committee undertake a study into the connection between the Minister of Finance and National Revenue and ALTO, and the minister's claim that he has recused himself from decisions his government made related to ALTO, that for the purpose of this study, the committee invite the following witnesses to appear by May 8th, 2026. Conrad von Fickenstein, who is the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, for 2 hours. Executives from ALTO, including CEO Martin Emblot, for 2 hours, and the Minister of Finance and Revenue for 2 hours. We are on the amendment which was moved by Mr. Saini, and that the amendment read as follows: that the motion as amended be further amended by deleting the words executives from ALTO, including CEO Martin Emblot, for 2 hours. Now, on that amendment, there was a sub-amendment that was moved by Mr. Hardy, and the amendment was to be amended by deleting the words including CEO for 2 hours. And the sub-amendment of Mr. Hardy, just so that everybody's clear, would have the effect of confirming that executives from ALTO will not be invited to appear, but that the CEO, Martin Emblot, will be invited to appear. So that is where we are right now on Mr. Hardy's sub-amendment. So if you are to support Mr. Hardy's sub-amendment, it would have, in effect, delete the executives and just have Mr. Emblot come, the CEO of ALTO. If you are not in support of that, it would return back to Mr. Saini's amendment that the complete deletion of line 2, executives from ALTO, including CEO Martin Emblot, for 2 hours. So we are on, effectively, Martin Emblot with Mr. Hardy's sub-amendment to delete the executives, but not delete Mr. CEO Martin Emblot. Okay, so on the sub-amendment, I have a list, and I really went back through the list as best possible, and I've got Madame Lapointe, who was first on the list on the sub-amendment. Okay, so Madame Lapointe, if you want to continue on the sub-amendment, I see your hand, Ms. Church, so I've got it. Madame Lapointe on the sub-amendment, and that, as I mentioned, that would effectively return Mr. Emblot back as part of a witness, but would delete the executive. So on the sub-amendment, go ahead, please.
Merci beaucoup. Vous m'entendez bien?
Can you hear me? Madame Lapointe, you have the floor.
Go ahead. We've got a point of order.
Apologies to my colleague, but just before we get started, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to, we have called this meeting despite the committee agreeing at the start of the session to have a minimum of 48 hours notice for a meeting. Are we suspending that practice? I'm just wondering how we're going to approach that given the agreement that we had for 48 hours.
I called the meeting at the discretion of the chair, Ms. Church, so that's where we're at this morning. So as I mentioned last night, we've got from 8:15 till midnight tonight to deal with this issue. So we're going to continue, okay, at the discretion of the chair. Go ahead.
Sur le point d'ordre, Monsieur le Président, quand on a débuté les travaux.
On the point of order, Chair, when we talked about the work of this committee, we had agreed on a few things. You made this decision yesterday, and I respect it, and that's why I'm here, but are there any other elements that we agreed upon in September that we will be coming back on? I remember at that first meeting we had agreed on certain things, for example, that we would get a notice of 48 hours before a meeting. You have the right and the prerogative, but are there any other things that we had agreed upon that you will be making decisions on?
The 48 hours is in fact intended for the election of the chair. The chair, this is what we dealt with at the beginning of the process of this committee being formed. 48 hours is also the process for notice of motions as well. So the chair has the authority and discretion to call a meeting. I decided to call the meeting last night so that we're here today, and so this meeting will continue. It's duly constituted. It's within my power and purview to do this, and so we're going to continue on with the meeting. If you want to keep going,
je veux juste revenir parce que c'est quand même.
What you're saying is interesting, and I do respect what you're saying. I understand that it's up to you to organize a meeting, and I respect that. And we're dealing with an urgent meeting, but what was the urgency in organizing a meeting last night for this morning? What's the urgency here? We're going to have a relevant discussion today, of course, but I wonder what the urgency was.
Well, I'll answer your question as simply as I can. This is an issue that we've now been at for 14 hours by last count. I am of the opinion that we need to continue this. I think this is an important issue. I think the committee clearly by its actions of 14 hours of debating this particular motion sees it as important, and that's why maybe some members don't. But in my opinion and discretion as chair, I believe that it's an important issue for this committee to be seized of, and that's why I called this meeting. Okay, thank you. Merci. Madame Lapointe, continuez, s'il vous plaît.
Ms. Lapointe, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. It's a little less gray than it has been all week. So if I understand correctly where we're at, we're looking at the motion that was tabled by Mr. Barrett. It was, we received the notice in April so that the committee undertake a study into the connection between the Minister of Finance and National Revenue and ALTO, and the minister's claims that he recused himself from decisions his government made related to ALTO, and that for the purpose of the study, the committee invite the following witnesses to appear by May 8th, 2026. 1. Conrad von Finkenstein, Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner for 2 hours. 2. Executives from ALTO, including CEO Martin Humblot for 2 hours. And 3. The Minister of Finance and National Revenue for 2 hours. And that the committee indicate to the House that it would be undertaking this study. Mr. Saini proposed an amendment to remove the second bullet. Point of order. I'm not finished. It's a point of order. We have a point of order. Mr. Hardy, I think that it would be important for people to listen when you're speaking because Ms. Lapointe is repeating the first minutes of the meeting. So instead of repeating what has already been said, it would be great for everyone to listen so that when we start debating, we can actually debate and not repeat what the chair has already said. Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Substantive and relevant debate continue what's been 14 hours of a fairly robust and substantive debate. We are on the sub-amendment right now, and that is to Mr. Hardy's sub-amendment, and that is to have Mr. Humblot, the CEO of ALTO, come before committee. That's it. So I do appreciate the review here, Madame Lapointe. Everybody is fully aware of what the motion is. On the sub-amendment of Mr. Hardy, I'm going to give you back the floor, and we can either vote on it after this, or we can continue extending the hours that we've already been at. So, Madame Lapointe, go ahead, please.
Alors, mon point de résumer les
So I was trying to summarize so that I can ensure that we were all on the same page. Mr. Saini's amendment was to remove the executives and CEO for 2 hours. Mr. Hardy then sub-amended that number 2, the second bullet, would say that we would only be inviting Martin and Beauf. And for those listening, we would no longer have that final sentence in the motion. When we talk about the Minister of Finance here, well, he spoke to the Ethics Commissioner, and I'll come back to that. When we're sworn in, we meet with advisors who give us information, and we receive advice, and we are told that we need to communicate with the Ethics Commissioner. All colleagues who are around the room today, or around the table today, know that they will meet with us, those experts will meet with us and tell us what a conflict of interest is. So, we all received training when we arrived and were sworn in. We also had the opportunity to communicate with the Ethics Commissioner. He met with us many times to respond to our questions. So the Minister of Finance and National Revenue is very aware of all of this and has been sworn in more than once, and he's a minister. We tell people, when in doubt, communicate with the team that is at your disposal, focused on conflicts of interest. That's what the Minister of Finance did. He asked to see whether or not it would be problematic for his wife to work as VP for Alto. And the Ethics Commissioner said that there wasn't a problem. And there's a Conservative member now, Mr. Barrett, who communicated with the Ethics Commissioner and was told that there was no issue, that everything was fine. So I don't understand why we're so focused on this. When in doubt, you verify beforehand, and that's what the minister did. And now we have a motion before us. Yes, we've been talking about this in length, but that's fine. We need to clarify the situation. Mr. Thériault, last time, referenced Mirabel. Last time he spoke, he talked about Mirabel and the expropriations that had happened at the time. My riding is just south of Mirabel. It's Deux Montagnes, Saint-Eustache, Beaubriand, Rosemère. I can talk about expropriation from the 70s. I was a young girl, and I remember the impact that it had on people. People who were living in Mirabel, who were expropriated, did move south, mostly to Saint-Eustache. So I met with those people, and they are still traumatized. But what happened in the 60s and 70s has changed. There are different requirements now. These major projects have clear and rigorous requirements. There are public consultations that have to happen. From the start, the process is transparent. There's a mechanism to question decisions. That was not the case in the 70s. Now people are sowing fear by saying that that's what's going to happen with Alto, and I think that's unfair because the rules have changed. We're not doing things the same way as we were in the 70s. And this comes from principles that are anchored in Canadian legislation. Social acceptability, respecting communities. The Canadian high-speed legislation is part of that modern framework. The interpreter would like to note that Ms. Lapointe's sound is cutting out. There needs to be a collaboration with the owners. Apologies, Ms. Lapointe. The interpreters are noting that your sound is cutting out a little bit. Please let me know. Should I lower it? I think that it's fine like that. I'll just speak.
Maybe take the plug out and plug it back in for me, please. This is fun.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez mieux?
Je sais pas.
Est-ce que,
Moi, j'entends, mais c'est pas les interprètes qui attendent.
peut-être que je peux parler moins vite?
OK, oui. Peut-être parler un peu plus lentement.
If you can speak a little bit more slowly, if you'd like. Yes, the floor is yours. The interpreter would like to note that it seems to be a connectivity issue. Are things better now?
Juste me dire si c'est correct.
C'est correct. Peut-être c'est la vidéo qui...
It might be your video that's not working well. We're seeing you now, but please start again. We'll see. Thank you. The legislation requires consultations and an impact assessment, and there needs to be collaboration with owners and establishes a clear and transparent process. It needs to be guided by the rules set out in Quebec and Ontario. There used to be no notice. Now there are formal notices and timelines before any expropriation. The government used to do this without coordinating with the Quebec government. Now the federal government works with provincial government. There's a legal obligation to consult. A point of order. Point of order. Mr. Hardy has a point of order on the sub-amendment. Ms. Lapointe?
And the sub-amendment is very clear, and that is to add just Mr. Embleau as the CEO of Alto to appear before the committee. It's very clear.
Justement, je vous parle d'Alto et je vous parle du train d'Alto.
I am talking about Alto and the high-speed rail. I am focused on the topic at hand, and I will continue. Ms. Lapointe?
And I would like to reiterate that we are talking again about the inviting the CEO of Alto to appear before the committee in relation to the motion, which again refers to the finance minister imposing an ethics screen on himself, yet participating in discussions, votes, and other things related to Alto. So this is not about the value or the virtue of Alto. If you want to discuss that or issues of expropriation or other issues, there are other committees to do that on, and I would invite you to do that. We're dealing with the ethical issue here, and if you continue to do this, I'm going to go to Ms. Church, who's next on the list. So please speak to the amendment. Go ahead, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci de ces...
Thank you, Chair. We are talking about a motion and Mr. Hardy's amendment, and I'm coming back to what Mr. Thériault said, talking about expropriations, and I haven't counted the number of hours that we've been focused on this, but it is a part of our discussion. We're talking about Alto, high-speed rail. You think that there's a conflict of interest, whereas the commissioner stated that the minister acted accordingly. Again, the interpreter would like to note that the sound is cutting out. Ms. Lapointe? Apologies, Ms. Lapointe.
I'm going to stop you, not for the reason that I stated about relevance, but we are having problems with your video and your sound. I just heard that again from the interpreter. So I am going to go to Ms. Church, and then I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to have the technicians work on fixing this problem because it is a problem for the interpreters. Okay?
Merci.
Okay. Ms. Church, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our wonderful committee on a Friday. I'm delighted to be able to weigh in on this amendment and sub-amendment on this motion. And Mr. Chair, I was very glad to hear that just in your comments that you recognize that although we have been at this for probably close to 14 hours this week, that it is in fact a robust and substantive debate. And I do think that that's important. Recognizing that going forward, that on issues like this, sometimes we do need to have a thorough airing of all the issues. On this sub-amendment, I mean, I think that there's a few different directions that I want to take my comments. First of all, I do want to talk a little bit about the substantive disagreement that we have about calling these witnesses, including any executives, but including the CEO of Alto, to this particular inquiry. I think, Mr. Chair, that we have set out over the course of the past few days our general concerns about calling witnesses and both using the committee's time, but also the witnesses' time on a matter that is improper for this committee to explore. And why is it improper? It's improper because it is an issue that's already been addressed by the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner quite clearly, and that I don't believe...
Appel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Point of order, Chair.
Oui, Monsieur.
Yes, Mr. Thériault. Point of order. Chair, I believe that you mentioned many times that we were at the 14th hour of debate on this motion. I think that Ms. Church clearly is acting as though this debate will be taking a lot of time, that we'll be wasting the time of resources that are in the room with you and wasting parliamentarians' time. If we had adopted the motion 14 hours ago, we only would have needed 6 hours. I think that out of respect for our deliberations and out of respect for the committee, we should at least avoid such comments and be clear on the facts.
Hey, merci, Monsieur Thériault.
Thank you, Mr. Thériault.
We are on the sub-amendment, and that is, it's very clear what the sub-amendment is, and that is to remove the executives from Alto from appearing, which I think addresses at least some of the stated concerns of members of the Liberal Party, to just have the CEO, Martin Imbalo, appear before committee. That's what we're dealing with. If we, and I'm just going to forewarn everyone here, if we get beyond this sub-amendment and start talking about issues that aren't relevant to the sub-amendment, you know, for the last 14 hours, I've heard a lot of discussion about the value, the virtue of Alto. That's not what we're discussing here. We're discussing very clearly from an ethical standpoint. The motion is very clear, and I'll say it again, that the minister's claims that he recused himself from decisions his government made related to Alto, that's what we're studying here, quite frankly. And so if I deem, I'm not going to be seeking any more interventions on point of orders. I'm going to make it very clear right now that if I determine that what we're discussing is not relevant or germane to this issue, I will be moving on to the next speaker. You can put yourself back on the list if you like, but I'm not going to sit here and take this for another 15 hours. So, Ms. Church, I'm going to go back to you on the sub-amendment and remind you that the sub-amendment is the CEO, Martin Imbalo, for 2 hours to appear before committee. That's it. Go ahead, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, I have to say I was less than a minute into my remarks, and I have not spoken on the sub-amendment or the amendment to date.
You've got a chance. Go ahead, please.
So, Mr. Thériault, I appreciate maybe your frustration with how the week has transpired, but I do have the ability to speak to the motion, and I certainly intend to do so. We're at a point.
We're on the sub-amendment, not the motion.
On the sub-amendment. Apologies for that,
Right.
but I am speaking directly about the sub-amendment and about the question of having Alto executives, including but specifically the CEO, appear. And I'm going to continue to do that. We are in a meeting right now that is without precedence, without notice, and that is where resources have been requested for 16 hours today. So I think that it is fair to say I'm within my domain and my speaking time right now to canvass the reasons why we oppose the sub-amendment on this side of the table. So, Mr. Chair, I was speaking about the substantive disagreement that we have about calling Alto employees, any of them, or any Alto executives, to the committee reflect on this particular topic, on this motion. That includes Mr. Embleau. And the reason is because, as I was describing, the inquiry here itself has been brought before the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and the Commissioner, independently, as that office is designed to do, has weighed in already on this topic and has actually said, confirmed, that Minister Champagne is not in a position of conflict, that he has respected the rules that have been set out for ministers, and that as Minister of Finance, he has no decision-making authority over matters of human resources at Alto, and therefore does not have the opportunity to further the interest of any specific Alto employee. So when we're talking about bringing the CEO of Alto to committee, the real question here is why? Why are we taking up the time of the CEO of Alto to weigh in on a matter that is properly within the scope of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and a topic which the Commissioner has already made comment on to say that there isn't an issue here, that the Minister of Finance has no decision-making authority. Now, the fact that the Minister went above and beyond the guidance of the Ethics Commissioner to establish a screen within his ministry is a reflection of the seriousness to which our government takes the conflict of interest regime, but it doesn't change the fact that the Ethics Commissioner has said that there is no conflict here. So when I take a look at Mr. Embleau, an executive who brings to Alto a wealth of experience at other organizations. Before joining Alto, he was the CEO of the Montreal Port Authority. He's been at Hydro-Quebec as a vice president, corporate strategy and business development for Canada and the United States. He's worked for ETHI as a vice president in several roles. He holds a master's in law from the Université de Montréal and a bachelor's in law from the Université de Québec at Montréal. He's a member of the Quebec Bar since 1997. He is chairman of the board of directors of the Université de Québec at Montréal's Raoul Danurand Chair in Strategic and Diplomatic Studies. This is someone who has the experience to guide a project like Alto, but bringing an executive like Mr. Embleau to this committee to testify on this matter seems to be nothing more than a dressed-up fishing expedition, Mr. Chair. Which brings me to, so not only do we have that substantive disagreement that it is improper to call Alto executives to this inquiry because the inquiry itself is improper, but, Mr. Chair, to your very specific point, we also have, I think, a procedural disagreement with this, which is if the interest in having Mr. Embleau here is to actually talk about Alto, then that is probably better referred to the Standing Committee on Transport. Because I think what we'd be expecting to hear from Mr. Embleau, if he appeared at this committee, would be about the project itself, its progress, its advancement, its community consultations, its timelines for building the route, the items that are probably specifically and properly within the scope of the CEO's role. So I asked my colleagues opposite, with their intention to call a very senior executive from Alto, what is their purpose in having Mr. Embleau testify?
Appel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Point of order, Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Thériault. We debated for 14 hours. Ms. Church spoke about half of that time. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but she certainly spoke more than I did. We were talking about the fact that we had questions on ethics to ask. She is claiming today that if Mr. Imbeau is invited here as CEO of Alto, he's going to speak about the project. Chair, we need to invite Mr. Imbeau. He needs to respond to the questions regarding ethics that we have, given the motion that we are looking to. He's not going to come talk about Alto. For the past 14 hours, you called the Liberals to order on the fact that they were not speaking to the motion. They were simply promoting this high-speed rail project. I want it to be clear for those who are listening to us and to Mr. Imbeau, in case he is tuning in. When he testifies before a committee, we simply have ethical concerns to ask him about that has nothing to do with the Transport Department.
Merci, Monsieur Thériault. That's, I don't know how many times I've said it. This is not the Transportation Committee. It's not the Industry Committee. It's not the Finance Committee. It is the Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics Committee. And Mr. Thériault is quite right that we are dealing with the question related to the Finance Minister's claim, and that's what this motion is all about. And my expectation is that Mr. Imbeau, if he does appear and we get to a point, hopefully before midnight, that we are able to come to an agreement on this motion that we've now been deliberating for 14 plus hours, that he won't talk about the value and the virtue, as I've said many times, of the Alto rail system, because that is not in question here. It is in relation to precisely what the motion says, and that's the Finance Minister's ethics screen and the impact that it's had on him, and perhaps not, and that'll be up to Mr. Imbeau to determine through questioning that is impactful with respect to the system. So, and what we're deliberating here and what we're dealing with here, okay, and that's the ethics issue. So, Ms. Church, I hope, I trust that you'll take Mr. Thériault's intervention with the sincerity in which it was intended, and I expect that we're going to get back on the sub-amendment, and that is to have Mr. Imbeau appear before the committee for 2 hours. You've had a lot of, I think you're on it, in my opinion, but I want you to continue to stay focused on it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm being very clear, actually, in terms of my views on this, on the sub-amendment. Mr. Thériault, I hear you. However, I do think, and I would ask us, having called witnesses before in other matters, to also hear our concern that, based on what we know of the situation right now, Mr. Imbeau is not here to materially, is not proposed to be here to contribute to a discussion of the Minister of Finance's conflict of interest screen that the Minister established inside the Ministry of Finance. There is, I think, a deeper proposition here, a deeper expedition that stems from, frankly, I would say, a concern on the other side of the table here about this project as a whole. So to bring Mr. Imbeau here, to take him away from what we think is a very important role, driving this project forward, to participate in a fishing expedition, is not a good use of his time. At a time when we're trying to cut this project's approval time in half, that requires the attention of the CEO. We want him to be doing the work of actually getting high-speed rail on track and advancing at high speed, so to speak.
Mr.
But
Church, Ms. Church, can I just intervene for a sec? Because, you know, again, like all of us, I've sat here for 14 hours. My expectation as chair is that we are not inviting Mr. Emblo to specifically talk about the merits of the Alto system or not. As I've mentioned a couple of times, there are varying opinions on that around this table. Some members clearly support it, some members clearly not. I think the fundamental issue that we're dealing with here is the finance minister's claims that he did create an ethics screen. In my opinion, and I think I'm hearing this from other members, the value that Mr. Emblo can provide is whether, in fact, there, notwithstanding this ethics screen that was applied, whether, in fact, there were discussions between the finance minister and perhaps Mr. Emblo as it related to the screen, as it related to decisions with respect to Alto, funding, financing, all of this stuff. Everything that the finance minister said that he has recused himself from, I think Mr. Emblo, in my opinion, has some value to add to that discussion of what this motion is calling for. So I just, I think I want to make it clear, I want to make it clear that this is not about Alto and the value and the merits of the system from having Mr. Emblo here. I think he has a lot to add to this discussion, but I just wanted to intervene to make that point, Ms. Church. At least from the perspective that I've been sitting here for 14 hours, listening intently to all of the arguments that are being made, I think both the Conservatives and the Bloc have indicated that this has nothing to do with the system itself. They may not agree with it. That's fine. This is all about the finance minister, the ethics screen, and how it was applied or wasn't applied. So there you go.
Mr. Chair, I hear what you are saying. However, I don't think that the Office of the Ethics Commissioner could have been clearer. When you raise the specter, I think as colleagues around the table would, of what conversations have there been, what interaction has there been, the Ethics Commissioner has been crystal clear. And I quote, "As Minister of Finance, you have no decision-making authority over matters of human resources at Alto. You do not have the opportunity to further the interest of any specific Alto employee." If that is the language, the decision of the Ethics Commissioner, then that is what we as parliamentarians, as an ethics committee, should be relying on. We have tasked the Ethics Commissioner. We have built, as parliamentarians, a regime on ethics that allows the type of inquiry that you are suggesting, Mr. Chair, to be invested in an ethics commissioner, someone who is independent and above the wonderful partisanship that the rest of us all live within, to be able to objectively look at these types of situations and to provide guidance that should be accepted by parliamentarians. The Minister of Finance acted on the basis of the advice provided by the Ethics Commissioner. End of story. Point final. So we could call Mr. Emblo to committee here, and we could go on an expedition to find out, what discussions he has with the federal government as a CEO of a crown corporation on a major nation-building project where, of course, there are conversations with the government about how to proceed on high-speed rail. But that is actually beside the point. And if we're being honest with ourselves, what is happening here with this motion and an attempt to bring individuals who are adjacent to this committee to make it into a circus is because this committee is saying that they reject the advice of the Ethics Commissioner. But that is not an appropriate way for us.
Appel au règlement, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président.
Point of order, Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Thériault. Chair, I don't think that inviting the Commissioner to explain a legislation that the committee is currently reviewing is irrelevant. I have questions that I would like to ask the commissioner, not only because of what has happened, but also because of what should have happened. We have a case here that has nothing to do with a circus. It's not a circus. And we are the Ethics Committee, and we want to ensure that with the tools at our disposal, we are able to shed a light on a situation and better understand it. That's what we're trying to do here with this motion. I have questions for the Ethics Commissioner. Perhaps Ms. Church doesn't. I also have questions for Mr. Imbeau, specifically regarding C-15 and the extraordinary powers that C-15 gives to ALTO regarding expropriation. And Chair, that's not a circus. If you've been expropriated and we're talking about that, please understand, Chair, that this is almost a matter of privilege. We can't treat this like a circus. We are not circus animals here. There's obstruction happening, a filibuster happening. They're against us inviting 3 groups of witnesses who would allow us to talk about this potential appearance of a conflict of interest. Can we please be more respectful? And if the Liberals want to continue filibustering because they don't want this committee to have better tools to manage this kind of situation in the future or to better understand, well, then I don't know why we're here. This is the principle of an ethics committee that the Liberals are putting into question. And what do they have to lose? If everything follows the rules, well, they'll be able to show in under 6 hours that everything was done correctly. I gave time to Mr. Thériault to explain.
We've all been very patient throughout the course of these now 15 hours that we're heading into. I think it's, in my opinion, my humble opinion, it's clear to some what this motion is intended for. May not be as clear to others. And I don't disagree on the relevance of this. And again, Ms. Church, I'm going to ask that you take what Mr. Thériault said with respect and the purpose for which it's intended, and that is that we need to stick to what is in front of us, and that is the motion to add Mr. Embleau to this. Mr. Thériault has claimed that, and I believe others have, that is relevant to this motion with respect to, he explained Bill C-15 and the powers that were given to him by the finance minister, who actually voted on C-15, despite the fact that he claimed he had an ethics screen that was to protect him from involving himself for a conflict that he had himself declared. But, you know, again, that's what's in front of us is this motion. So I'm going to ask, again, Ms. Church, please, on the sub-amendment from Mr. Hardy, just on inviting Mr. Embleau, you know, if you don't agree with it, we're on the sub-amendment. If you don't agree with it, then, you know, call the vote, vote against it, and then we can move on to the main motion. But go ahead, please, Ms. Church.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do hear you, Mr. Thériault. I wish that we didn't have to devote this kind of time to this kind of motion. And I hear you about your concerns around ensuring that we are taking questions of the ethical conduct of parliamentarians seriously. I think it's our position that we would gladly invite the Ethics Commissioner to the committee to discuss this. Mr. Chair, if it would move our discussions forward, I would gladly seek unanimous consent to move a motion that I would put on the table right now. And I would suggest that that motion could be that, given that the Minister of Finance and National Revenue proactively wrote to the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner to declare his relationship with the newly hired executive at Alto High Speed Rail. B, that the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner determined that there was no risk of a conflict and no screen was required. C, the Minister of Finance and National Revenue nonetheless opted to recuse himself from the project via a self-imposed conflict of interest screen. That the committee, A, invite the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner to testify for 2 hours to discuss the Conflict of Interest Act, its application to cabinet deliberations and parliamentary votes, and whether any conflict of interest took place in this instance. And second, that we would reserve the right, following the appearance of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, to invite both the Minister of Finance and National Revenue and the CEO from Alto High Speed Rail to answer any outstanding questions. So, Mr. Chair, if I'm happy to move that motion and seek unanimous consent to do that, which would bring the Ethics Commissioner here to the committee on this topic so we could hear directly from him about it, and reserve the right to have both the Minister of Finance and the CEO here subsequently.
Okay, I think that was a fairly substantive.
Appel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Point of order, Chair. Mr. Theriault, go ahead. Chair, in the wording of that motion, we seem to have a conclusion to what should be a study. I think that it's ironic that after 15 hours, we're proposing to invite witnesses. Apologies, Mr. Theriault. Ms. Church proposed a unanimous consent on a motion. We can't debate it. So I'm going to need to ask members if we have unanimous consent. Do we have unanimous consent? We do not.
Go ahead. And we're not on the unanimous consent motion. We're on the sub-amendment. So any comments related to that are not relevant to the discussion. We are on the sub-amendment of Mr. Elmlow. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I mean, to me, that the issue here is whether or not this committee is open to hearing from the Conflict of Interest Commissioner as against any of the CEOs of Alto or Mr. Ambleau himself. The Conflict of Interest Commissioner would have by far the most relevance to the type of inquiry that Mr. Theriault and that other members of this committee are speaking about. Which is why I think from the outset we've been very clear that we are open to having the Ethics Commissioner speak to this committee about this topic. Calling in the appropriate witnesses to offer testimony on this matter is exactly what this committee should be focused on. And the reality is that it's the Ethics Commissioner that has the purview over this, that has all of the facts of the case, that has provided public comment on it, that has provided guidance to the Minister of Finance, and would be the best person for this committee and, in fact, for all parliamentarians and the public to hear from. So it is disappointing that we can't find consensus to start with the Ethics Commissioner and govern ourselves accordingly on the basis of his appreciation of this issue. Certainly, compared against the sub-amendment that we have here, the Ethics Commissioner is far better positioned to speak to these issues than Mr. Ambleau, who, as the CEO of Alto,
Monsieur le Président, appel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Point of order, Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Theriault. I don't know if it's because I'm tired, Chair, but I don't understand. I don't understand what Ms. Church is saying. So I'm just seeking clarification, because what I'm understanding, because we need to be able to comment appropriately. So what I'm hearing is that the motion and the sub-amendment to the main motion would make it so that we wouldn't hear from the Ethics Commissioner, although he has been in the list of those that we want to hear from. It's just a sub-amendment. So instead of removing the second bullet entirely, and we don't want, or rather, we didn't want it to seem like we wanted to hear from execs from Alto and the CEO, and then with the amendment and the sub-amendment by Mr. Hardy, we were clarifying the second bullet to invite only the CEO so that nobody else from Alto would be invited to testify. The project would not be delayed by our study, so I'm not sure how she can say that we are against hearing from the Ethics Commissioner. And I wonder if she is debating on the motion that was rejected without speaking to the sub-amendment chair. Mr. Thériault, if it's a point of order, if you have a point of order, I understand that it's a question that you're asking, but we can't debate on a point of order.
You have the floor. I actually erred in procedure there, and I admit this to the committee, that once a motion is moved, that we move on to the next speaker. I didn't do that. I gave you the floor, but go ahead, Ms. Church.
Well,
and please consider Mr. Thériault's comments as well, because I'm in agreement with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think I've been clear in my opposition to the sub-amendment, clear in the opposition to needlessly calling executives from Alto or Mr. Embleau to this committee, particularly prior to hearing from the Ethics Commissioner. If the committee is interested in hearing from the Ethics Commissioner, that is entirely appropriate. We have a sense from his ruling that there is, and I quote, no risk of a conflict of interest, and that a conflict of interest screen was not required. We can hear from him about his considerations, how he arrived at that conclusion. That is obviously the most relevant testimony to the inquiry that's being sought here by the overall motion. But on the sub-amendment, I've been clear that we do not agree with it on the basis of the substantive concerns about the propriety of calling Alto to an inquiry on this as a whole. And secondly, if the interest is in calling senior executives or Mr. Embleau from Alto, that by its very nature, we would anticipate that not only would this committee want to explore ethical questions, but also questions relating to Alto as a project itself, which would properly reside elsewhere, as we've discussed. So, Mr. Chair, I think I've been clear, but I will end my remarks there, ask to be returned to the speakers list, but look forward to hearing from other colleagues.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Church. I had Madame Lapointe, but she's no longer with us, so I'm going to move to Mr. Hardy. Mr. Lavoie, I'm going to put you below Ms. Church here. Go ahead, Mr. Hardy, please. Monsieur Hardy, commencez, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Chair. We are now in the 15th hour of a debate that has been a Liberal monologue for 14 out of 15 hours. The first question that was asked today is, why are we here? Why are we here with so little time to prepare? And I think that it's a perfect demonstration of the liberal attitude. They create a problem and then they wonder why we're in this problem and then they accuse us of causing the problem. We want to invite 3 people to this committee for 2 hours each. It's clear, 6 hours. Now we've been debating this for 15 hours, which is interrupting everyone's schedules. It's costing a fortune to taxpayers. We've heard about everything except the topic at hand. And we're being accused of wasting the committee's time. This is serious. Not only that, we have proposed solutions. There was an amendment that was proposed. We accepted to not bring this to Parliament. What we do here should be presented to parliamentarians in Parliament, but we accepted so that we could save some time. Then we accepted that we would clarify that we didn't want to invite the minister's wife. That was fine. We did that. You didn't want it to be too many witnesses with the exec, so we clarified that we wanted the CEO. We want to invite 3 people who are working for the government. So stop saying that they don't have the time, that they can't be here. They work for Canadians. They are paid by the public. We want to hear from these people. They are paid with taxpayer dollars. They have nothing else to do. They have to be here to respond to questions that we have. We are the opposition. People are saying, well, there's a minister that recused himself, but then he voted on issues 16 times. How come we can't have him here to respond to legitimate questions at the Ethics Committee? Ms. Church stated that perhaps this question should be sent to the Transport Committee. Well, the point of view that you've been sharing since before is that we're going to be debating the high-speed rail. That's not what we're trying to do. We want to ask questions to people who are potentially involved in an ethical issue. For the last 15 hours, you're right to say that what's happening has nothing to do with the topic at hand. You're making it seem like we want to review the project that is Alto. That is not why we're here. That's not what we're talking about. And we've been here for 15 hours, costing a fortune to taxpayers. Can we please come back to my sub-amendment, which is clear and efficient?
Point of order, Ms. Church, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, only because I think there were several point of orders brought up during my testimony speaking to the sub-amendment. I'd ask Mr. Hardy to stay focused on the sub-amendment.
Okay. Ready? Stay focused on the sub-amendment.
Alors, Monsieur le Président, je vais reprendre exactement ma dernière phrase.
I'm going to come back to my last sentence. Can we focus on the sub-amendment? I'm asking the committee to focus on my sub-amendment. Ms. Church is asking me to focus on the sub-amendment. Perhaps you should listen to us when we speak. We'd save time. It would be great. What I would like to understand is what your expectation is. That we're not going to ask any questions? Why do we have an ethics committee if we're not able to invite agents of parliament when there's a potential conflict of interest? That's the theme of our committee. So, I'll end on this because I think that I've been sufficiently clear. This is not going how it's supposed to go. We should be here to work for Canadians. What are you proposing? We want to invite the minister, that's fine. We want to invite the ethics commissioner, that's fine. Would you like for us to not speak to Alto? If that's the case, would you propose that we invite the minister and we invite the commissioner? You can propose that we remove Alto. We'll see what happens, but we need to stop messing around and really move forward. We've been agreeing with you to move things forward and to respect taxpayers. Can we move forward, propose something so that we can find a solution? We need to stop listening to you monologue regarding inviting the minister to respond to questions, and you don't want Canadians to receive clear answers. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. On the sub-amendment, Mr. Thériault, I saw that you raised your hand. Here's the speaking order that I have. Mr. Sari, Cooper, Saini, Church, Lavoie, Thériault. Mr. Sari. On the sub-amendment. Yes, on the sub-amendment, Chair. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of this committee, and I've mentioned that before. I'm honored to be a part of it and honored to be a part of this debate. I wouldn't qualify it as being a monologue. I think it shows the point of view of the different parties in the room. There are 2 points of view, and perhaps I'll start by talking about how we got here regarding the sub-amendment. What happened? What are we dealing with? We have here a motion from Mr. Barrett. He did excellent work. He asked questions to the commissioner. I think that is very relevant. He raised points, and as Mr. Hardy said, it is up to us as MPs to reflect on such situations, and it's the role of the opposition to question the actions of any government. Mr. Barrett did what he needed to do. He wrote to the commissioner. Great. I think that he had a good reflex, as did the Minister of Finance, who has experience in the House of Commons. He's experienced as a minister, and he had the right reflex. So, we have 2 actions that were relevant. The commissioner responded to the minister, and the Minister of Finance showed some goodwill, and I thank him for that work. Now, regarding the commissioner's response to Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett is a member of Parliament. He can ask questions, but Mr. Barrett is also a committee member. If he received an answer, would it be relevant to share it with us? And we can decide whether or not we should invite the commissioner to testify and to explain exactly how we need to act here at our committee. But I also agree with Mr. Thériault. We're currently reviewing our policies and our legislation regarding conflicts of interest. We are at a cornerstone of seeing how things should change. Now we're trying to decide whether or not we need to invite the commissioner and the minister. It's important for those who are listening to us. They might be a little bit lost. They don't know if we'll sit, if we won't, and I agree with you, Mr. Hardy. You said that people have the right to know. I completely agree. But for those who are listening to us, they need to know whether or not we will sit at this committee and whether or not we've adjourned the discussion on the motion that was tabled by Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett, in tabling that motion, decided to suspend discussion on the motion, and then Mr. Hardy brought back the discussion on the motion, and people may not have followed. And so that's why it's important to explain what happened. You're saying that we're monologuing, but there have been discussions. And last night, and I'm happy to be here this morning, I'm ready to listen because I'm hearing interesting things from all sides. I think that we have interesting things to say, and I listen to people even though I don't agree. I listen attentively. And on the sub-amendment, Ms. Church made a proposal, and you told us to propose something, and we're saying, let's bring in the commissioner, because we don't know if there was a response to Mr. Barrett. Let's talk to the commissioner, and then we can make a decision after that. If we really want to be transparent, we should show them our reasoning as government and as opposition. This is how the Conservatives have been acting since the beginning. They were against, then they're for, then they're against the project. Canadians support the project. I'm not going to come back to that because if not, I'll get another point of order. But what I'm calling into question here is the approach that you had. I think that we should err on the side of caution. Just yesterday, we heard from the OECD, and what did they tell us? That we are very well rated regarding lobbying. We're well perceived internationally, but we need to come back to Canadians and the 49% regarding their trust. What we're doing today is potentially undermining Canadians' trust that we are trying to build at this committee. One of the reasons I am proud to be here is because I can help build Canadians' trust in their institutions. And we need to focus on perception. We need to focus on hypotheticals sometimes. We don't always know what the goal is with a motion. And that can be problematic, Chair. So I would like to come back to the approach that we should have, a cautious approach. We want to maintain the public's trust, and in order to do so, we should invite the independent expert. Do we have an independent expert within our institutions? The answer is yes. Yes, we do. The commissioner is an independent agent. Is there anyone in the room here who could say that the commissioner is not independent? He can give us something to reflect on. He can be neutral. Before we go any further, before inviting Alto, before inviting the minister, before we move on to hypothetical questions, before we sow the seed of doubt, let us use the independent resource that we have. Let us invite this independent agent, and I hope that we all trust this person. He will give us a neutral perspective, as I just said. Speaking with Alto, and again, I would like to congratulate Alto for its work, and I have some points in common with Mr. Humblot. We both went to the Université de Montréal, and I'm very proud of that. And knowing him, he's not going to talk about ethics. He's responsible for a project. He's going to talk to us about a transport project. Perhaps he should speak to the Transport Committee to see whether or not the steps of the project are well planned out. Are the resources available? Are there any issues? Has there been a real consultation? Those are questions for him. But to have him come here to ask questions, although the question has been asked to the commissioner and we have not yet received a response, even Canadians are going to think, what does the commissioner think? Nobody can say. The only thing that we know is that advice was given to the Minister of Finance. And he said, and the commissioner said that there was no conflict of interest. Is there an appearance of a conflict of interest? Well, let's invite the commissioner so that we can ask him the question. And after that, we can meet as a committee to talk about this. Even across the room, there are people with expertise and experience. I'm hearing the chair, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Hardy. You have experience, but we need to debate this. And Mr. Thériault, I welcome your extraordinary expertise, but let's start by hearing from the commissioner. And then we can discuss this after that. We can see what answer was or wasn't given to Mr. Barrett, and we can decide after that whether or not to invite Alto. In inviting the commissioner, perhaps we'll say, well, your response to the minister is based on what facts? We can be very open. We'll have 2 hours to ask questions. I'm not, even if I don't agree with the motion, and I repeat this all the time, I don't agree with Mr. Barrett on this motion. I don't agree at all. But I respect him. I said that he did the work that he had to do, and I respect that. That's why he was elected. That's why he was chosen. He is an opposition member. He does the work of an opposition member. We need to work respectfully. I welcome this work. We need to continue the work that we're doing. We need to know what answer was given to Mr. Barrett, was or was not given to Mr. Barrett. Are we trying to protect someone here? No. That's not the point. I didn't want to make a point of order on that, but I did hear that. I said it, and I will say it again. I have not received orders from anyone. The only order I can receive would come from the members of my riding who voted for me and who said that I would represent them. They have the right. They are listening to us. And we accepted to be members of this committee. And I hope that we will be able to improve Canadians' trust towards our institution at this committee. I can't undermine this trust. I need to build it. I'm not here to protect anyone. I want to ensure that our committee, whether we are Bloc, Conservative, or Liberal, I want our committee to follow a well-established order that is logical. We can say that we are working according to something logical. We'll invite the commissioner, we'll ask questions. Do we have to agree with him? We will need to create a report at the end of this. I think this discussion is relevant. You've talked about 14, 15, 16 hours. It's not a matter of time. It's the way that we need to work and be ethical in our work. We need to be accountable regarding the responsibilities that were given to us. And we need to avoid making assumptions. And that is where I completely disagree with those across the room. We need to not make assumptions. We need to hear from the commissioner. We don't automatically need to hear from those other people. Are we basing ourselves on what we read in the newspaper? I sincerely hope not. On hearsay? I hope not. That's not the committee's role. What did we base our decision on? I'll come back to what Mr. Barrett did. He wrote to the commissioner. That's a good reflex to have. It's an excellent one, in fact. But we don't have an answer. I would have liked to have that answer. And instead of having this debate, I would have liked for Mr. Brassard to write to the commissioner. Do people just want clips, a show, a 14-hour show, a 24-hour show? It'll last for however long it takes. But we're all here. We have a point of view. I support my point of view. I'm ready to debate it, whether it be till midnight, Monday, Tuesday. We're ready. I'm ready for it. Because I want Canadians to trust this committee. We are far behind on this project compared to other countries. And it makes no sense. Again, it comes back to sowing doubt with hypotheticals. If we were talking about the commissioner, that would be another issue. If the commissioner had raised the red flag, that would be different. Now we're raising a red flag regarding a question that has not received an answer, whereas an answer was given to the Minister of Finance. The Commissioner can also help us in this committee. When we invite the Commissioner, and again, Chair, I'm speaking to the sub-amendment, and at least now we can't, I can't be accused of monologuing. I'm speaking about the committee and the work that we're doing. At least somebody thanked me. The Commissioner will help us. If we need to invite witnesses, well, the Commissioner can help us, given his independence, his experience. He can tell us, well, maybe you should invite this person, this group for your study. He can tell us what documents we need to have access to. And perhaps we'll need to make adjustments. And Mr. Thériault, as you can see, we don't have a report, and we have an opportunity here. But you want to show, you want to invite the minister, you want to invite executives at Alto, knowing that they're doing excellent work on this major project. He will also be able to orient our discussions as well. I don't want to say how you should ask your questions. And we have the regular committee members here, Mr. Hardy, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Thériault, Mr. Barrett. You have some knowledge, but we can invite an independent entity today, or we can invite an independent person here. I think that discussions that we could have with the Commissioner would be very relevant. It would allow us to better focus our discussions. Instead of making a show of this, point of order, Chair. Point of order. Mr. Thériault, you have a point of order? Chair, Mr. Sari was talking about the respect for the work that we've been doing for 15 hours. Now he's repeating himself, so perhaps he's at a loss for new arguments. He's saying that we're making a show of this. It seems that we would only need to invite the Ethics Commissioner to respond to any ethical issues in Parliament. The Ethics Commissioner was appointed by elected officials who did not make a show of it when they appointed him. So we are here to make amendments to legislation that the Commissioner will be implementing. Chair, can you remind everyone that we're not talking about the relevance of inviting the Commissioner. The Commissioner is the first bullet. You're right, Mr. Thériault. We're talking about a sub-amendment. We let him speak because he hadn't spoken for a while, but we want to hear from the CEO, Mr. Humblot. The Commissioner made a decision, Chair. And we can question that decision regarding what should be done. I don't know why the Liberals are so afraid, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Thériault. You are correct. Mr. Sari, we are on the sub-amendment. The sub-amendment is on Mr. Humblot and not the Commissioner. If you have something to say regarding Mr. Humblot, we can talk about that. But we're not focusing on the main motion right now. We're focusing on the sub-amendment regarding Mr. Humblot. If you want to continue.
And I will exercise my authority. If you do repeat yourself, I will move on to the next speaker. Go ahead, Mr. Sari.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Thériault. Perhaps I'm not expressing myself well. I'm talking about how we want to invite Alto, Mr. Humblot, and the Minister. I'm not going beyond the scope. I'm talking about my disagreement to the sub-amendment, and I'm giving my arguments for this. I've been trying to avoid saying anything that could be poorly received by the other side of the room. It's Friday morning. Perhaps there are some that are tired. I'm not tired. And I'm not lacking in arguments. Far from it. This is just the beginning. What I was saying is that we have a resource at our disposal who might say exactly what I'm saying now. Inviting executives and coming back to the sub-amendment for inviting Alto executives, that might not be relevant. That might be what he says. Let's use this resource that we have. Chair, point of order. Mr. Sari is saying that the opposition is dealing with hypotheticals. Now he's saying that the Commissioner is going to tell us that it's not relevant to invite Mr. Humblot. That's hypothetical too. And he's indirectly doing what he can't do directly, which is trying to convince us that we need to hear from the Commissioner, and that's the first bullet. The Commissioner, Alto, the CEO, and then the Minister of Finance. That is how the motion was written. So, regarding inviting Mr. Humblot, that's what we need to be focusing on and not indirectly focusing on the Commissioner and how he could tell us that we don't need to invite Mr. Humblot. The Commissioner would never say to parliamentarians what they can or cannot do. Thank you, Mr. Thériault. Mr. Sari, please focus on Mr. Humblot. If you speak about the Commissioner again or their reputation, I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Cooper, who is next on the list. On the sub-amendment, please. Chair, I don't understand. Am I not being clear?
You are speaking to things that are not relevant. The sub-amendment speaks to Mr. Imblo being invited. I also think that there's a lot of repetition going on. So I'm going to give you one more opportunity. If you want to go. And then if not, then I'll move on to Mr. Cooper. Go ahead, Mr. Surrey.
J'ai plusieurs arguments sur lesquels je veux parler, pourquoi ça serait pas pertinent.
I have many reasons for why it would not be relevant to invite Alto. My first argument was that we did not use the knowledge and the expertise of the commissioner who could tell us whether or not it would be relevant. Is that not clear? There's not a hypothetical.
The commissioner is coming to committee. That is part of the main motion. We're on a sub-amendment specifically related to Mr. Imblo, and so you can talk about the commissioner, not relevant to this sub-amendment, quite frankly. So the argument that you should be making is whether Mr. Imblo should be coming to committee or not whether the commissioner comes, not whether the finance minister comes. That's what this sub-amendment is about. It's about inviting Mr. Imblo to this committee. So you either agree with that or you don't.
Je suis en désaccord d'avoir M. Imblo ici.
I disagree with inviting Mr. Imblo, and I've been giving my argument regarding why he should not be invited with the sub-amendment.
Je suis en désaccord. Mais est-ce que je peux dire pourquoi?
Then there's really no need to repeat it. You've made that point already. So I'm gonna let you go. And then I'll make a determination on relevance and repetition in a very short period of time if you stray. And then I will move on to Mr. Cooper. Go ahead, sir.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci beaucoup à Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Thériault. Again, I'm only giving arguments regarding why we shouldn't be inviting Mr. Imblo, as was the case of the sub-amendment. So I started with my first argument regarding using the independent resource that is the commissioner. Now, why would it not be relevant to invite Mr. Imblo? When you read the motion, and if I put myself at the head of a company like Alto and I come here and I'm asked questions regarding an appearance of a conflict of interest or a real conflict of interest, I don't see what kind of questions I could ask him if I don't have the relevant information that I need, knowing that I already have an independent resource who indicated that there was no conflict of interest. How could he, who has a lot of knowledge regarding leadership, project management, and infrastructure projects, and you can read his bio if you're interested. This is a very interesting person, but what can he tell us about ethics? We're going to include him in this matter of a conflict of interest or a potential conflict of interest. We need to maybe eventually focus on Alto and its consultations because they've been working well with Indigenous communities. But coming back to ethics and the motion that was tabled by Mr. Barrett, I don't see how someone, for example, somebody who was responsible for the Port of Montreal could help us with ethics. Somebody managing a major project, I don't see how they could help us. Somebody who works for Hydro-Québec, I don't understand the relevance of inviting someone like that. That said, maybe I'm wrong. But who can tell me whether or not we should invite him? Well, we skipped a step in inviting the person who could recommend who to invite. And what I can say, and I'll conclude on this, Chair, don't forget that I was a teacher for many years, in Quebec for more than 18 years, and I was taught that repeating oneself is a good way for people to learn. Sometimes repetition is important and it works for some. To conclude, Chair, my goal is that Canadians who are listening to us, even with suspensions and adjournments and coming back early on a Friday morning, I hope that we are not undermining people's trust in their institutions. I hope that we're not presenting motions to have clips. And hopefully, with what I've said, what Ms. Church has said so far, that we can factor all of that in. And I hope that we will first start by inviting the commissioner, and after that decide whether or not to invite other relevant witnesses to this committee. I would like to reiterate Ms. Church's request, and with all due respect for my colleagues across the way, I hope that everyone will be listening to me right now. As a government, we want this project to move forward. We deserve it as Canadians. We need it. Japan, France, Morocco, other countries are not better than Canada. Canada has a right to have its own high-speed rail, and we don't need this kind of filibustering or disturbance. We need confidence here. Thank you, Mr. Sari.
Say this in English. There was a lot of latitude given there, but I am going to refer members to the committees and questions of procedure and privilege, and it speaks to the issue of disorder of conduct. And as we head in 10 minutes into the 16th hour of this debate, Section 20.110, I think I quoted this yesterday. It speaks to certain things, but I want to point out to the committee specifically what it says about the authority of the chair. In addition, the chair may, at their discretion, interrupt a member whose observations and questions are repetitive or are unrelated to the matter before the committee. If the member in question persists in making repetitive or off-topic comments, the chair can give the floor to another member. This is something that I don't exercise or don't want to exercise lightly because, you know, as members of this committee who've been part of this committee for a while understand that. Just hang on, I'm not finished.
On a une alarme d'incendie, juste pour vous dire qu'on a une.
There's a fire alarm in this building. I just wanted to flag that.
So it's something that I don't exercise. I try to use my discretion on it, but I will tell you. What's that?
On a une alarme d'incendie, juste.
There's a fire alarm ringing.
On a une alarme d'incendie, je le répète, je ne sais pas ce que.
Fire alarm.
S'il te
Okay.
plaît. Come on.
In this building?
Yes. In this
Okay.
building.
Okay.
Je l'ai répété.
Sorry, I was on a roll there. I didn't see it. So I am going to suspend for a couple of
On
minutes
va
until.
suspendre jusqu'à ce que l'alarme soit terminée. C'est les règles de
No,
l'incendie, pas du comité qui prennent sur celui-ci.
I am going to suspend
Please.
until this is dealt with by the fire services and PPS.
Please, thank you. Ça, c'est les règlements qui prennent sur celui-ci.
Resuming the meeting after the suspension for the fire alarm. As I was saying, and I referred members to the procedures book under committees and questions of procedure and privilege, I'm going to repeat myself. Section 20.110, 538 It does say, we're 16 hours into this now. In addition, the chair may at their discretion interrupt a member whose observations and questions are repetitive or are unrelated to the matter before the committee. If the member in question persists in making repetitive or off-topic comments, the chair can give the floor to another member. I'm going to, given the length of this debate and what I deem as some repetitive comments, I'm going to be exercising that authority. Again, as I said earlier, I try to give a lot of latitude no matter what we're doing, because I believe fundamentally that the member's time is the member's time, but when it drones on and carries on into repetition, that becomes a problem for me. So and anybody that's been part of this committee for as long as I've been chair knows that whether it's a discussion on any study that we're doing, debate, questioning, I give a lot of latitude, but I'm going to narrow that latitude quite a bit as we move forward. So next on the list on the sub-amendment, which involves Mr. Imblo coming to committee, not the executives, not the finance minister's wife, nobody but Mr. Imblo coming before this committee on the issue of the finance minister's ethics screen. I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, go ahead, please. On this of the point of order, Monsieur Seri, go ahead.
Oui, juste,
Firstly, thank you for that latitude. Thank you for that reminder. But in 116.2a, unless the committee adopted a time limit, or the House of Commons did, the chair of a committee, in this case you, cannot put an end to the debate as long as there are members who still wish to speak. A decision on the chair cannot be given to the committee. That was my first point. Secondly, you talked about putting an end to the discussion if it's not relevant. I think that you have a lot of experience. I appreciate your work. Would this not give the chair the ability to say whose comments are relevant or repetitive? This is a friendly reminder that I want to make while thanking you. I wanted to come back to that Standing Order 116.2a. I would like for us to work collaboratively as we always have. Thank you.
Questions. Mr. Sari, the chair has no authority to end the debate as long as there are still speakers on the list. I understand that. But as I said earlier, the specific reference in the book and procedures of committee that I was referring to refers to the chair's ability on the issues of repetition and relevance that he does or she does have the discretion to move on to the next speaker, right? Now, if in that case I exercise that authority, every member is well within their right to add their name back to the list. But if it's irrelevant and non-topical and repetitive, then I can exercise that authority again. I generally, as I said, I give a lot of latitude. You guys know that because you've been with this committee for a year, whether it's, as I said earlier, whether it's with studies, whether it's on this issue, I do that. But we are getting into 16 hours, in my opinion, of repetition and relevance on what was first an agreement among the parties to remove something, and yet the debate continued. And now we are on the removal of the executives of Alto and including just himself, Mr. Imblo, to appear before the committee. And so I happen to think that we can move on and deal with this, but I have no authority as long as there's members that are still on the list. But I do have authority under the issue of relevance and repetition, and I will exercise that authority. So with that being said, I've got Mr. Sari's name added again behind Mr. Theriault. So Mr. Cooper, you are charged with commencing the 16th hour of this issue being debated, and I'm going to go to you now, sir,
Thank you
on the sub-amendment.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And on the sub-amendment, I have listened carefully to the arguments put forward by Liberal MPs opposite, including Mr. Seri, who last spoke. And I want to respond to some of the arguments that he put forward in terms of his position that for some reason the CEO of Alto, Mr. Imblu, is not a relevant witness. But I do want to say that Mr. Seri concluded his comments by suggesting that somehow hearing from the CEO of Alto, demanding the CEO of Alto come before this committee, and the process to get answers that we are dealing with this motion is somehow undermining the trust of Canadians. I'll tell Mr. Seri what is undermining the trust of Canadians, and that is when a minister of the Crown, the Minister of Finance, has a hand in directing billions of taxpayer dollars to a company, Alto, in which his partner is a vice president. And I'll tell Mr. Seri what also is undermining the trust and confidence of Canadians, and that is this 16-hour spectacle that we have seen from members opposite, who have wasted time, who have
Point d'ordre, Monsieur le
filibustered.
Président, si on peut revenir sur le
Point of order, Chair. Can we come back to Mr. Hardy's sub-amendment? That would be relevant.
Running interference yet again, wasting more time. You know, I saw this movie before in the last Parliament, at this committee, during the dying days of the Trudeau government, when the rot, and I mean the absolute rot of that government, had sunk in. And the more things that change, the more they stay the same. Because here we have a minister of the Crown caught in a conflict of interest.
Point of order.
Go ahead, Ms. Church, on your point of order.
Mr. Speaker, as my colleague across the way knows full well, the Ethics Commissioner has said exactly the opposite. At least let's debate the facts.
Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
If Ms. Church wants to talk about facts, let me tell her a few facts about the Ethics Commissioner. First of all, he hasn't responded to Mr. Barrett's letter. There are some very specific points that were raised, some specific allegations, specific references to sections of the Conflict of Interest Act. There has been no response from the Ethics Commissioner. And yet, members opposite have suggested that. In fact, I think Mr. Seri, in his comments, he opened by saying that Mr. Barrett had done such a great job at doing his due diligence, sending a letter to the Ethics Commissioner, and that the Ethics Commissioner has responded. Well, no, Mr. Seri, the Ethics Commissioner has not responded to Mr. Barrett. In fact, the Ethics Commissioner hasn't, to my knowledge, made a statement regarding what appears to be a conflict of interest involving the finance minister. What I saw was a statement quoted in a CTV news story by someone in the Ethics Commissioner's office. That is less than satisfactory in the face of the very serious issues and serious questions about the minister's involvement in handing out billions of dollars to Alto. And by the way, if everything is so clear and so obvious with the Ethics Commissioner, why is it that when the Minister of Finance has been asked to provide documentation, proof that everything is on the up and up, he can't do that? He can't do that, and won't do that, and won't answer questions, and is in hiding. Now, with respect to some of the arguments, if you could call them arguments, put forward by Mr. Seri as to why the CEO of Alto shouldn't appear, he said, first of all, that we don't need to hear from the CEO of Alto because the ethics commissioner is coming to committee. Now, that is a circular argument. Of course the ethics commissioner is coming to committee. We need to hear from the ethics commissioner. No one is debating that. That doesn't provide any answer as to whether we need to also hear from the CEO of Alto. Mr. Seri then went on to say that the CEO of Alto is a CEO involved in a high-speed rail project, and that he couldn't provide any relevant information on matters of ethics. In fact, Mr. Seri said he had no idea what questions he could possibly pose to the CEO of Alto. Well, I mean, give me a break. Respectfully, Mr. Chair, give me a break. The CEO, we're not asking the CEO of Alto to come as some sort of expert on ethics. We're not asking him to come before this committee to provide his interpretation of various sections of the Conflict of Interest Act. But Mr. Seri characterized him as coming in that capacity to to speak on matters of ethics? I mean, what is he talking about? What planet is he living on? What planet are those members living on? That's not why we want to hear from the CEO of Alto. I want to hear from the CEO of Alto for a few reasons. The first is that the Minister of Finance has declared a conflict in respect of Alto, and quite appropriately so, given that his partner is a vice president. The Minister of Finance claimed that he set up an ethics screen, that he acted proactively. But yet, for a minister who set up an ethics screen, who was being so proactive, it was all very secret. No one had heard of this ethics screen. He never spoke about this ethics screen. He never spoke about this conflict until he got caught. And then all of a sudden, there was an ethics screen. And then he said he acted proactively.
Monsieur le Président, s'il vous plaît. Il n'y a personne qui a pris un...
Point of order, Chair. I'm asking Mr. Cooper to remove his remarks. Mr. Cooper, again, with all due respect, and Chair, I would like to ask him to come back on those remarks. There are people who are listening to us. We want to give information that is true and information that was given by the Commissioner.
Thank you for that intervention, Mr. Seri. I'm listening intently to Mr. Cooper, and I find that he's speaking specifically to the sub-amendment and what questions he actually wants to ask Mr. Imblo, and I find this very relevant to this discussion, and I'm going to ask him to continue. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then the finance minister says, oh, well, there's this ethics screen that no one had heard about before. And then the minister's spokesman said, this is a quote from a National Post article dated April 6, 2026. Quote, the minister fully respects the screen, meaning he is neither implicated in nor party to any discussions, decisions, or votes related to Alto. Now, the problem with that statement from the minister's spokesperson is that not one part of that, other than that there is an ethics screen in place, is accurate. The minister has repeatedly involved himself on matters pertaining to handing billions of dollars to Alto. He has introduced legislation. He has spoken to and defended that legislation. He has voted on that legislation. He included it in the budget. He even incorporated into the budget bill legislation, the High-Speed Rail Network Act, that was specific to Alto, that was to advance the Alto project. The minister came before the Senate Finance Committee, and when he was challenged by Senator Carignan about the Alto project, bragged about how he personally delivered the goods in relation to the Alto high-speed rail project, a company, of course, which his partner is a VP of, and of course, a company that he admits he has a conflict with in light of his partner's position at Alto. And so, contrary to his assertion, or his spokesperson's assertion, he did have discussions, he did involve himself in decisions, and he did involve himself in votes related to Alto, and based upon the statement of his spokesperson, respecting the screen means you don't have discussions, you don't have decisions, and you don't have votes related to Alto, but he did. And therefore, by the words of his spokesperson, violated the ethics screen that supposedly was in place, but no one had ever heard about until he got caught. Now, Mr. Chair,
Monsieur le Président, encore une fois.
Point of order. The Minister of Finance was never caught. Let's not share falsehoods. I would reiterate, Chair, through you, we need to speak with facts for those who are listening to us.
Parce qu'on l'a sur un papier.
It's not because you have it on paper that it's true. It's not because it's on X. It's not because there's a video that it is a fact. The facts are what were said by the Commissioner.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think we're trying to get to the facts here, Mr. Sari. So, Mr. Cooper, on the sub-amendment, I would appreciate Mr. Imblow's presence as proposed in the amendment or the sub-amendment that you return to that.
Well,
please.
this is what I'm getting to. What I just said goes to the very heart of why we need to hear from Mr. Emblow. But Mr. Sari says something about getting back to the facts. Well, I just quoted the minister's spokesperson. Is he saying that the minister's spokesperson didn't say that with respect to the ethics screen? Is that what he's saying? Because I'm just quoting him. So it's, I don't know what he's talking about, other than I guess he just decided he wants to delay things further, run interference yet again, all part of the game, all part of a charade, all to cover for the minister. That's what this is about. That's what the Liberals are doing over there. They have no interest in getting answers, none whatsoever. Now, going to the sub-amendment.
Point of order, Chair. We're not here to defend anyone. I said it many times. Again, I respected people across the room. I'm not here to defend anyone. I'm here to defend ethics. Again, he quoted the spokesperson, yes, but he interpreted them in his way and says that he was caught in the act, even though that is false. I'm not saying he's off topic, Chair. What I'm saying is that he's sharing falsehoods.
Merci pour ça, Monsieur Sari.
Thank you, Mr. Sari.
Sometimes, points of orders are not necessarily because you don't like what somebody's saying. I get that. It has to be relevant to the issue, but I am going to ask Mr. Cooper to to deal with the sub-amendment. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, going back to the ethics screen and the statement of the minister's spokesperson, and then what we know to be the minister's actions, including his involvement in various discussions and decisions, speaks to the need to hear from the CEO of Alto. We need to know what discussions, if any, the minister had with the CEO of Alto, because that does go to the heart of whether there was a conflict, or if there wasn't a technical conflict at best, I think there are ethical questions at play in terms of the appropriateness of the Minister of Finance being involved in such discussions around advancing billions of dollars to the Alto project, given the role of his spouse, because at the end of the day, when billions of tax dollars are at stake, this is a $90 billion project after all, Canadians deserve
Point d'ordre,
to
Monsieur
know.
le Président, qu'on revient sur le
Well, I
sous-amendement.
mean,
Point of order, we need to come back to the sub-amendment.
Mr. Sarre, okay, I'm going to be frank here. Mr. Cooper is talking about what he believes to be very relevant and specific questions that need to be asked of Mr. Imblo. He's mentioned that several times. And if he wasn't on that topic, I would tell him. I'm listening intently to what he's saying, and there are specific questions related to this that he feels that he needs to ask Mr. Imblo. The sub-amendment that we're dealing with is having Mr. Imblo come to committee and answer those questions. And Mr. Cooper, in my opinion, is very topical right now on that sub-amendment. So continue, Mr. Cooper, and I would appreciate, unless it's an egregious issue that Mr. Cooper is talking about, I would appreciate no further interruptions.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Well, thank you. And I'm to your point, I'm speaking very specifically to the amendment and specifically why we need to hear from him to understand exactly what discussions the minister had, if any, relating to money that was directed towards Alto to advance the high-speed rail project, because, as I said before Mr. Seri ran interference yet again, is that when billions and billions of tax dollars are at stake, Canadians deserve to know that personal relationships, such as having a partner serve as VP at the company that is benefiting from those billions of dollars, are not influencing those decisions. And when it comes to the CEO of Alto, I mean, let's be clear what the government and what the finance minister, as he delivered the goods, as he bragged about doing, delivered for Alto. $597 million for the 2025-26 pre-construction works, such as design, environmental work, and consultations. Alto was also allocated $3.9 billion over the next 6 years for the project's co-development phase, and $125 million over the next few years for the project to get over various hurdles related to approvals and coordination. The notion that the CEO of Alto was completely in the dark, had no idea, had no role, had no discussions, no involvement with billions of dollars coming to Alto is inconceivable. And it speaks to why we need to hear from him, why he's a relevant witness. And the other argument that was put forward, I don't think by Mr. Seri, but by Ms. Church, as to why we shouldn't hear from him, despite what I would submit are are very real, good reasons to hear from him, is that because he's the CEO of Alto and he's so busy getting a high-speed rail project built at speed, so to speak, as Ms. Church put it, that it would be a big waste of his time. Well, I mean, really? We have a potential conflict of interest, at best, serious questions about the minister's judgment in his involvement in this matter, and a CEO of a taxpayer-funded company, a $90 billion project paid for by taxpayers, that he's too busy to come before this committee and answer questions. Well, I'll tell you, the CEO of this company, who's receiving billions and billions of tax dollars, can damn well spend an hour or two coming before this committee to answer questions. And he damn well better come before this committee, because we need to hear from him. And so I would just say, it being hour 16, that the Liberals should, if there's nothing to see, if everything was above board, if the minister is in the clear, then what better way to hear from the ethics commissioner, to hear from the minister, and to hear from the CEO, who is obviously very much involved in the billions of dollars that Alto is receiving from this Liberal government. So with that, I will leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Saini, on the sub-amendment about Mr. Imblo appearing before committee. On the sub-amendment, sir. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Is it common when there's a ethics screen that it has to be announced publicly that there's an ethics commissioner? Mr. Cooper keep bringing that thing, that this is a mandatory thing. I think as long as the ethics commissioner is aware of it and a member preside by that ruling, I think that's the most relevant thing. And the other thing I am having difficulty, similar to Mr. Srai, when we keep saying that the minister got caught. There is no such information which is a public to say that minister was caught. Minister voluntarily went to the ethics commissioner, stated his fact, and moved on. But this discussion is not going anywhere. Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Saini. Mr. Saini he's moved a motion to adjourn the meeting. I am going to, do we have a unanimous consent to adjourn the meeting? We don't? Okay. So we've asked for a recorded vote.
Just before we continue, Mr. Bardisi will have to do thumbs up, thumbs down. He's not allowed to speak. We cannot check his internet connection, and he's a car. The interpreter said it's a safety issue.
Okay, just before we vote, Mr. Bardisi, I'm going to have to see a thumbs up or a thumbs down when your name is called, okay? I'm going to have to see it clearly in the video. Mr. Clerk, we've asked for a recorded vote. The motion for Mr. Saini is to adjourn the meeting. If you vote yes, the meeting will be adjourned. If you vote no, then the meeting will continue. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Saini.
Yes.
Mr. Sari. Oui. Mr. Lavoie.
Oui.
Mr. Bardisi.
I see a thumbs up. I'll take that as a yes.
Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Monsieur Hardy.
No.
Monsieur Thériault.
Non.
4 yeas, 4 nays.
Okay, my vote is no. The motion to adjourn is defeated. I had Ms. Church next on the list. She's not here. I am going to go to next Mr. Lavoie. Mr. Lavoie, just a reminder, we've been at this for 16 hours plus. I made it very clear that we are on the sub-amendment with dealing with Mr. Imblo. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to discuss the relevance, value, or virtue of the Alto system. This is a sub-amendment that we're dealing with, and I expect that you will stay on topic, sir, or else I will move to the next speaker. Mr. Lavoie and Mr. Saini, you want to be put back on the list? Mr. Saini has been put back on the list. So, Mr. Lavoie, go ahead, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je suis content d'être ici avec vous pour remplacer ma collègue.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to be here to replace my colleague, Ms. Lapointe. I'm happy to speak because this brings me back to things that I used to be passionate about. In the past, I worked for more than 20 years in banking, and we focused on conflicts of interest, ethics. After about 20 years, I believe that I became a bit of an expert in ethics. We needed to re-sign our conflict of interest declaration every year, ensure that there was no conflict of interest, and so to be here today to speak to you about ethics is relevant for me and for this debate. I was shocked earlier. I was surprised. And I just want to consult my notes here. I read the motion, and last September, the minister recused himself. He followed the rules. These were rules that were established, that were thought out, that were debated on. He recused himself. Now to debate a motion for him to come back and talk about this surprises me. We've heard how the banking system in Canada is great. It's one of the best in the world. When there are rules in place and people follow those rules, we don't make changes. When commitments have been made, we don't take the time to say that we're going to review a whole process because there might be something there. The rules were followed, and I'm quite shocked with this process. I also was concerned by the relevance of comments made, and I heard my colleague, Mr. Hardy, and he seems to have left the room. He's my riding neighbor, who I appreciate, saying that the high-speed rail has nothing to do with our discussions. I think it is relevant, and I'll tell you why. Everything has a cause and an effect, and I apologize for the example I'm about to give. I was raised on a dairy farm. It's like talking about the quality of milk without talking about what the cows eat, how stressed they are. It's like we're trying to talk only about the quality of milk, but everything is interconnected. So I'm coming to this debate here today. We're talking about the sub-amendment. We're talking about inviting Mr. Imblo, and I know him, by the way. I met him in a past life when I was at the Chamber of Commerce. I have interviewed Mr. Imblo. Should I recuse myself from being at this meeting today? It would never end. So I'll come back to the relevance now. When Mr. Hardy said we're not talking about high-speed rail, yes, we are. It is part of the discussion. because his boss said that he was against the high-speed rail. And this comes back to everything being interconnected with the hay and the quality of milk. I know that we're talking about a sub-amendment and Mr. Blue, but since my arrival here, I've been hearing that it's not relevant, and I take issue with that, especially when we're talking about conflicts of interest. I said it, I worked in banks, and we need to look at everything. We need to look under every rock. And that's what the commissioner did. And there were people before the commissioner who put in place the rules that we now follow. And now because somebody's following the rules, we're going to look into it anyway. My wife is working for a business that's receiving provincial funding, federal funding, municipal funding. Do I need to recuse myself as an MP? There are colleagues who might have a neighbor who works for a business that is receiving a grant. Should they recuse themselves? Where does it start and where does it end? And there were rules established. There were people before us with a lot of experience who got together, sat around the table, and worked on rules. Because where does it start? Where does it end? There was a minister who followed the rules and recused himself. And now, we want to question that. And we're only focused on a sub-amendment here without looking at the entirety of what's being proposed. That's what surprises me with this discussion here. I had taken other notes. Apologies, Mr. Lavoie. Just to clarify.
Amendment. If the sub-amendment is approved, then we move to the main motion to deal with the discussion on the rest of the motion as it relates to the conflict of interest screen and who we are inviting. So I invite you, sir, to stick to the sub-amendment, and the sub-amendment is to have Mr. Imblo, the CEO of Alto, appear before this committee in relation to what we're discussing. Go ahead, sir.
OK. J'y arrivais. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
There's a problem with the microphone. The interpreter cannot interpret.
Oh, si on parle.
Il y a un problème avec.
There's a problem with that mic. You can perhaps speak a little more. The interpreter would like to request that he change microphones.
Ah. Est-ce que vous m'entendez, là, présentement?
The interpreter would like to note that we can hear him, but the microphone is crackling.
Sound before. So, continuez si c'est un problème qui continue. No? Microphones.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Échanger.
No. Can you change to the next microphone, please? Use microphone 12.
C'est 12 qui est là. Numéro 13. Oui, OK. Je m'excuse, mais c'est pas bon pour les interprètes. There was a bit of a crackling sound. I don't know where it was coming from. Okay. Recommencer.
Please resume when you're ready.
Merci.
OK. Est-ce que vous m'entendez bien?
Oui.
Ça va?
C'est
OK,
plus mieux. C'est plus mieux.
Yes, that's better. Thank you. I was coming to the motion, Chair. My comments, my opening remarks were important. And yes, on this sub-amendment, thank you. I will speak to the sub-amendment. I made that preamble because when I hear us say that we shouldn't be talking about the high-speed rail, or that we won't be, and that it's not relevant, well, Alto was hired for this high-speed rail project. It's like speaking about the leaves but not the tree. If there is no high-speed rail, there's no motion, there's no sub-amendment. So I will be speaking to the sub-amendment and the high-speed rail because there's a direct link there with Alto. The high-speed rail is a subject that I know well. I was chair of the Chamber of Commerce in Quebec. We carried out surveys, and I'll share the results. I participated in interviews. We met with people. I made speeches on that. I did research on how good it is for the country, how good it is for Quebec. And so this is a direct link with Alto. And to say that there is no direct link with the sub-amendment, I take issue with that. So I'm going to move on to the sub-amendment as well as the high-speed rail. I worked at the Chamber of Commerce for 4 years, and I've taken some notes. Just let me find it. April 18th, 2023, leaders of Quebec City, and I was part of that group. We were about 15 to sign off on a letter, and I will tell you what it said. April 18th, 2023. Bridging that distance in under an hour. Mr. Lavoie, we're not here to talk about Alto's history. We're at the Ethics Committee. We are speaking to the sub-amendment at hand to invite Mr. Ambleau to the committee.
History of Alto. If you want to do that, you can go to the Transportation and Industry Committee. Okay. I don't, the committee is not interested in hearing about the history. We've sat here for 16 hours and 45 minutes. I've allowed a lot of latitude. I've also spoke about the relevance and the repetition. And if you continue with this, I will move on to the next speaker. I'm telling you right now. On these sub-amendments.
OK. Le sous-amendement.
The sub-amendment has to do with Mr. Ambleau, CEO of Alto, but we don't want to talk about Alto. There will be building the high-speed rail, and we don't want to talk about the high-speed rail. That's what I've been saying since the start. I worked in banks for 20 years. Everything is interconnected. We can't just take one element and not look into the rest. This is one part of the whole.
I know that you just joined us this morning, so I'm going to provide some clarity on this, Mr. Lavoie. The motion in front of us is on the finance minister's ethics screen as it relates to his participation in decisions, discussions, his vote on the budget, and other things related to Alto. It's not related to the merits or the values of Alto. Mr. Ambleau, Mr. Barrett put in the motion, and we've amended it again, that Mr. Ambleau has something to add to the merits of the motion in relation to the ethics screen. We're not talking about the project. We're not talking about what it means for the Quebec-Canada corridor. The Industry and Transport Committee can discuss that. We are talking about the finance minister's ethics screen and his participation in those discussions. And it is the opinion, according to Mr. Barrett and perhaps others, that Mr. Ambleau has some value to add to the ethics screen discussion and discussions among other things, because as I'll remind you that the finance minister did say that he had not participated in many of those discussions. And the evidence contrary is that perhaps he has. So what we're trying to do is get to the bottom of it. So please don't discuss the value or the virtue of the train system again, if you don't mind. And I will ask you to speak on the sub-amendment. Go ahead, sir.
Je propose, Monsieur le Président, qu'on
I propose the adjournment then.
Adjourn the debate or adjourn the meeting? I'm not clear on that. Are you asking? Yeah, I'm not clear, Mr. Lavoie, whether you're moving to adjourn debate.
J'entends pas bien, excusez-moi la
Okay.
traduction, là.
I'm not. Yeah, that's okay. I'm not clear whether we've already had a motion to adjourn the meeting, which was defeated by members of the committee. So the only option you have at this point, since you have the floor, is to move to adjourn debate. So we've already dealt with this once. So you have the floor. Are you moving to adjourn debate?
OK. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
I just need clarification. What's your motion? You moved a motion. What is it? What is the motion you moved?
Je vais continuer.
If I may. I'll continue with my speaking time.
Ça va?
I withdraw my motion.
Attendez.
Okay, you made a motion to adjourn. The only option you have right now is to move to adjourn debate. So you made the motion. I'll accept the motion to adjourn debate. Okay? So we're going to call, I know that we're not going to have consensus on this, so I'm going to call for the vote. Go ahead. We have consensus on it? No. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the clerk to call the vote on the motion to adjourn debate.
Mr. Saini.
Yes.
Monsieur Sari.
Oui.
Monsieur Lavoie.
Oui.
Mr. Bardizzi. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up,
Yes.
thumbs down, Mr. Bardizzi. Okay.
Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Monsieur Hardy.
Non.
Monsieur Thériault.
Non.
4 yeas, 4 nays.
Okay, I vote no. Merci pour vos commentaires, Monsieur Lavoie.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lavoie. Mr. Thériault, the floor is yours. Thank you, Chair. On the sub-amendment, please, Mr. Thériault. Yes. Thank you, Chair. It's been almost 16 hours, if not more, and I'm not blaming anyone here, but we've been following the debates the whole time, Chair, because we have not been replaced by anyone. I understand that having some new people around the room can perhaps allow us to continue this debate, but in all of my comments, Chair, I have avoided or talked about wanting to ask questions to the Commissioner, Mr. Amblot, and to the Minister. We'll be having 6 hours for that, so perhaps 2 or 3 meetings for that if we are able to adopt this motion and if we deal with the sub-amendment first, of course. And just to clarify, for those who have just turned on the TV and who are wondering how we've been talking about this for 16 hours, the argument on the government side is to say that this is a fishing expedition. That we're looking to discredit democratic institutions and undermine people's trust because the ethics commissioner made a decision, gave his opinion. Chair, it's not because the commissioner examined the situation that we can't hear from him and ask him questions, especially because we are currently reviewing the Conflict of Interest Act. In this ordeal, we're looking at three parties. The commissioner, first and foremost, as a resource to us. And I will say it again, he suggested in our review of the Act to include the notion of an apparent conflict of interest. That's where this motion comes from, Chair. From the moment Alto, and as described by the Liberals, as soon as Alto decides to offer a job to the partner of the finance minister, who will be at the head of this project from A to Z for the adoption of C-15, and this bill will be giving to Alto expropriation powers that are significant and reduce the powers of those who are being expropriated. And we are allowed to ask questions to the chair of Alto. Mr. Theriault, my apologies, but QP is about to start with members' statements in 3 minutes. I just want us to give us enough time to go to the House for QP.
Meeting to the call of the chair. Thank you, everyone. Merci. And Mr. Theriault, quand on retourne, vous avez la parole. Okay? The meeting is suspended. Thank you. Call of the chair. I'll let you.